Hi, my name is Isabel, and if you're watching this, maybe you've been through something similar. This story isn't about bruises, it's about invisible wounds, the kind you can't see in the mirror. I was never punched, never slapped, but every day, I bled on the inside. Because he didn't need fists, just words, and for years, those words controlled my life. You know, when people talk about abuse, they think of broken arms, of shouting, of black eyes. But what about the silence? What about the mockery, the manipulation, the way someone can twist your thoughts until you don't even trust yourself anymore? That was my prison. So today I want to tell you everything. I want to tell from the moment I met him to the moment I realized I wasn't crazy. He was just slowly destroying me. If you're going through something like this, please listen until the end, because I promise there's a light, and you're not alone. We met in the most ordinary way. A friend of a friend, a Friday night, a bar I didn't even want to go to. He offered me a drink. I almost said no, but his smile, there was something about it. Warm, calm, like he saw right through me. We talked for hours that night. About books, about dreams, about stupid things like how we both hated pineapple on pizza. I remember walking home and thinking, wow, I think I met someone different. And he was, at least in the beginning. He didn't rush anything. He listened. He remembered details. On our second date, he brought me my favorite chocolate. On our third, he took me to a bookstore and said, "Pick anything. I want to know the stories you love." How could I not fall for that? He was everything I thought I wanted. Smart, confident, funny but not the loud kind. The type that makes you laugh with just one raised eyebrow. I introduced him to my friends. They liked him. My mom was a little suspicious, but she always is. I thought she was just being protective. We moved fast. Within a few months, we were spending almost every day together. He knew what I liked, what made me laugh, what made me cry. And little by little, he also learned what made me doubt myself. But I didn't see that yet. I only saw a man who held my hand in public, who made me playlists, who said things like, "I've never felt this way about anyone. You're the only one who really understands me." I felt chosen, special, safe. There were little things, of course, like how he made fun of how I dressed sometimes. Jokingly, of course. "You're not going out like that, are you?" He'd laugh. "Just kidding, kind of." Or when I talked about a dream job I wanted and he said, "That's cute, but come on, be realistic." He always said it with a smile, a smirk, like he knew better. And I thought, he's just teasing. He's just being honest. But honesty isn't supposed to make you shrink, is it? I remember the first time I felt small. We were at a dinner with his friends. I told a story, something funny that had happened to me at work. And he interrupted halfway through and said, "Babe, you always take so long to get to the point." Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But inside, I froze. I didn't tell another story that night, or the next one. And he noticed. "You're being quiet lately," he said. I wanted to say, "I'm scared of sounding dumb," but instead I said, "Just tired, I guess." And he replied, "Yeah, maybe don't overthink everything so much." with that same smile, that same voice that felt like a hug, even when it was hurting me. At this point, we were already living together. He had his toothbrush in my bathroom, his jacket in my closet, his routines slowly becoming mine. He didn't like when I went out without him. "Not that I don't trust you," he'd say. "I just know how guys are, and I worry, that's all." At first it felt protective, like love, but soon it became isolating. I started canceling plans, avoiding phone calls, lying to friends. "I'm just busy. Work's been crazy." The truth was, it was easier to avoid the world than to explain how I was slowly disappearing inside my own life. He had a way of making everything feel like my fault. If I cried, I was too sensitive. If I disagreed, I was being dramatic. If I got distant, I was overreacting again. And he always had just the right words to spin it back. "I'm only this way because I care. You're lucky I'm patient. No one else would deal with your moods like I do." And the worst part? I believed him. I started thinking, maybe I am hard to love. Maybe I do need to change. But here's the thing. No one tells you about emotional abuse. It doesn't start with yelling. It starts with whispers, with jokes, with slow, soft words that carve doubts into your mind until you don't recognize the woman staring back in the mirror. And that's where I was. At the beginning of the end. Smiling for pictures, saying I'm fine to everyone, while inside, I was sinking. I used to be so sure of who I was. I had opinions, dreams, confidence. I used to walk into rooms without second-guessing myself. Now, I'd rehearse what I was going to say before speaking, and still stay silent. Not because he told me to, but because I didn't know if my words were good enough anymore. He never yelled, never raised his voice, but somehow I was always apologizing. It got to a point where I stopped talking altogether. I avoided conversations. I walked on eggshells every day, never knowing what would set him off. One wrong word, and he'd shut down for hours. No yelling, just silence. Cold, heavy, punishment through absence. And when I tried to fix things, I need space. I can't deal with your drama. Maybe if you weren't so intense all the time. So I stopped being intense. I stopped being emotional. I stopped being me. Why are you crying again? Are you seriously doing this right now? You're exhausting. The worst part was, he said it calmly, like a disappointed teacher. Like I was just a burden he still had the patience to carry. And I clung to that. I thought, at least he's still here. At least he didn't leave. That became the standard. He didn't leave. He stayed. Even if it meant staying to tear me down piece by piece. There was one night I'll never forget. We were in bed. I had just told him I felt a bit anxious. I don't even remember why. Something about work or family, nothing big. And he sighed, loudly, rolled over, and said, "I don't know why everything has to be so hard with you. You drain me. You know that, right?" I didn't respond. I just stared at the ceiling, feeling my chest tighten. And then he said, "I wish you could just be normal, like other girls. That sentence cut deeper than anything else, because I believed it. I truly thought there was something wrong with me. I started Googling things like how to stop being too emotional, how to not ruin your relationship, how to make your boyfriend love you again. As if it was me who changed. As if it was my fault that I felt unloved. And he reinforced that every chance he got. I work all day and you still complain. You're lucky I haven't left. Other guys wouldn't put up with this. You don't even realize how difficult you are. I stopped seeing friends. I lost weight because I forgot to eat. I barely slept. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw a ghost. Tired eyes, hollow cheeks, a woman pretending to be alive. But still, I stayed. Why? Because trauma doesn't feel like trauma when you're inside it. It feels like love, just gone wrong. And you keep thinking, if I try harder, it'll go back to the way it was. If I just fix myself, he'll love me like before. But that man, the one from the bookstore, the one who said I was his everything, he was gone. He started comparing me to other women, subtly at first. You know Sarah from work, she's super chill. Emma would never freak out like this. You should try being more like her. He wanted me to be quiet, easy, predictable, not real, not me. Then came the gaslighting. I'd confront him, calmly, respectfully, about something he said that hurt me, and he'd say, "That never happened. You're making things up. Wow, you're really losing it, huh?" There's nothing more terrifying than starting to doubt your own memory, your own version of reality. I'd journal at night just to document things so I could go back and check. No, I'm not crazy. He really said that. I wrote it down. But when the person you love tells you you're imagining pain, it becomes easier to believe them than to believe you're being destroyed by someone who once looked at you like you were the whole universe. He controlled the narrative. To his friends, I was dramatic. To my family, I was going through something. And to myself, I was invisible. One day, I looked at myself in the mirror and whispered, "Is this what love is?" And a voice inside me, small, trembling, almost dead, answered, "No, this is not love. This is survival. This is what it looks like to slowly disappear in someone else's world." That night, I didn't sleep. I laid next to him, listening to his breath, thinking, how did I get here? Why do I feel so alone when he's right beside me? What happened to the girl who laughed at her own jokes? Who believed in things? I missed her. I missed me. And that's when something shifted. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It was a quiet decision. I was done bleeding for someone who never even noticed the wounds. The next morning, I woke up before him. I stared at the ceiling and whispered something I hadn't said in a long time. I don't want to feel like this anymore. Not, I want him to change. Not, I wish things were like before. But me, I don't want this life. That was the first real thought that came from me. Not filtered through fear, not shaped by his opinion. Just mine. I wish I could say I packed my bags that morning, that I walked out strong with dramatic music playing in the background. But that's not how healing works. Leaving someone who emotionally destroys you isn't one big decision. It's 1,000 tiny ones. It's looking at a message and not replying. It's choosing to go for a walk instead of crying in the bathroom. It's telling a friend the truth, even just a small part of it. It's writing in your journal instead of deleting your thoughts. It's one whisper at a time, until those whispers become a voice. And that voice becomes yours again. I started going to therapy. And in the first session, I cried like I hadn't cried in years. My therapist didn't tell me what to do. She just listened and said one thing I'll never forget. You are not too much. You were just with someone who gave you too little. That broke me. And it healed me. Because I had spent so long trying to shrink. To be smaller, quieter, simpler, so I could be easy to love. But love doesn't require that. Real love holds space for all of you. I started doing things I hadn't done in years. I went to the park alone. I sat on a bench with a coffee and just breathed. No noise, no tension. No one watching me to see if I was too emotional. I messaged a friend I hadn't seen in a long time. She replied in 5 minutes. I've missed you. I was worried. Come over. She didn't ask for an explanation. She just opened the door. And when I told her what I'd been through, she didn't say, I told you so. She said, you're not crazy. I saw it. I just didn't know how to help. But I'm here now. And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. I started listening to podcasts about emotional abuse. I read articles. I found women online telling stories that sounded like mine. And with every story, I felt a little stronger, a little less ashamed, a little more alive. One video said, it's not your job to prove your worth to someone who's blind to it. That hit me hard, because for years I kept trying to deserve his love, not realizing love isn't earned like that. It's given freely, willingly, or it's not love at all. One day I sat down and wrote a letter to him, but I never sent it. It wasn't for him. It was for me. You don't get to define me anymore. You don't get to shape my silence. You don't get to live in my head rent-free. You had your chance, and you used it to break me. But I'm rebuilding now, without you. When I finished, I folded it, tore it into pieces, and threw it away. It felt like closing a door. And when I finally did leave, yes, I left. It wasn't dramatic. No fights, no shouting. I just said, I don't love you anymore. Or maybe I do. But I love myself more now, and that's enough. He laughed, rolled his eyes, told me I was being ridiculous. But it didn't matter anymore, because for the first time in years, his words didn't stick. They slid right off me, because I had rebuilt something stronger underneath. Leaving didn't solve everything. Healing is messy. Some nights I still cried. Sometimes I missed the good moments, even if they were fake. But day by day, I came back to myself. And that woman, she's fierce. She's soft and loud and kind and complicated. And she's not too much. She's just enough. If you're watching this and you're in a similar place, let me tell you something from the other side. You are not broken. You are not dramatic. You are not weak. You are surviving. And soon, you will thrive. I'm not telling this story because I want pity. I'm telling it because for too long I thought I was alone. And maybe you do too. Maybe right now you're sitting in your room staring at your phone, wondering how you got so small. Let me remind you of something. You are not small. You've just been trying to survive in a space that was never meant to hold your light. And now, it's time to expand again, to breathe again, to rebuild. Not overnight, not perfectly, but daily, with every step, every boundary, every moment you choose yourself. It's okay if you're not ready to leave yet. It's okay if you still love him. You're not weak, you're human. But even if you're not ready to walk away, be ready to walk towards yourself, because that's where healing begins. You're allowed to take up space, to speak loud, to cry ugly, to laugh for no reason, to love again, starting with you. If this story touched you, tell me. Tell us. Share your story in the comments. You never know who's reading. Who needs your words like you needed mine? Because healing isn't just personal. It's collective. And this space, this channel, it's for us. One voice at a time. One story at a time. From woman to woman, from heart to heart. Thank you for listening. And if you want to hear about another story where betrayal came from the person she trusted most, you might want to stay for the next video, because sometimes the deepest scars come from the softest hands.